Hello, everybody, and welcome to our podcast, Home Away from Home. This is our first official episode. My name is Moishe.
And I'm Gal.
And our first episode is going to be back to the roots. We're going to actually
Talk about our Aliyah experience.
Take you to our first experience of the Aliyah, where we actually start our Israeli journey as immigrants. And we hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome back. Okay, Gal.
Let's start.
Let's start. Do you want to bring your story in first?
Actually, I think we should talk about yours because you did Aliyah first, so I'll give you the respect of
the
going
elder.
first.
Okay, so I didn't make Aliyah by choice. It wasn't a decision that I could have made. I was 5 years old when we made Aliyah. Mm-hmm. My experience of the Aliyah was brought on after a trauma that my parents had in South Africa. Yeah.
Okay.
They were planning on making Aliyah for a very long time.
Wait, what year was this?
This is in 98.
Okay.
So they were planning on making Aliyah for a very long time. And just before we made Aliyah, somebody hijacked my mom at gunpoint.
No way.
Yeah, from our driveway in South Africa, in Johannesburg. And that's when my mom and dad just said, enough is enough. They both had successful businesses in South Africa. Mm-hmm. And they just said, we just can't carry on living this way.
Wow.
And my youngest sister was born, and we made Aliyah.
And she was born there or here?
She was born there.
Okay.
And that's when we made Aliyah. So I made Aliyah back in 98. We went straight to a little village up north by the name of Gispin. Gispin is a religious community. It's a little village just overseeing the Kinneret.
So you were raised like religious?
So I was brought up
lifestyle.
religious.
Okay.
In the village that I grew up in, if you'd have a family member come visit you on Saturday, on Shabbos, mm-hmm. they'd have to park their car outside the gates of the...
Because it was like...
The yeshuv, exactly, because it was... the yeshuv was religious and no cars would drive inside throughout Shabbat. While growing up, if you'd see a woman walking around with trousers, it was considered very taboo and
looked down upon.
Exactly, looked down upon.
I think we should explain maybe for people who don't know.
It's just
like
very
Shabbat.
Religious. Yeah. So for Jews, if for any reason you're not Jewish and you're listening to us,
whoever might be listening to this who is Christian, Muslim, etc.
Firstly, Israel welcomes everybody. You'll have a great time here. But second of all, so in the Jewish religion, the Saturday is a day of rest.
It's a holy
day. It's a holy day, and no electronics are used. You don't drive your car.
You can't cook.
You don't cook. You make the food ahead of time. You leave everything on timers to make sure that it warms up the food whenever you need it, etc. It's a real day of rest. Like you don't even get to check your phone or to watch TV or to check the computer.
You can't go on Instagram. You can't go on YouTube.
Nothing.
You can't watch TV.
Completely. You disconnect from the world for 48 hours.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting experience. There's a lot of good, a lot of less. And we'll talk about the religion in one of the episodes. Yeah. But
just
anyways,
for like a basic
just for a basic explanation. And when I say yeshuv, I mean a little village up north. Anyways, so I was brought up on this yeshuv, Gispin. We were the first, if I'm not mistaken, the first or the second family of olim on the yeshuv. So we were the first or second family of olim on the yeshuv. Mm-hmm. And the people living on the yeshuv at the time weren't used to having olim immigrants
around them.
Because it's a really, really isolated. It's I can't give a good example, but it's
like everyone knows everyone.
Everybody
is
knows
familiar,
everybody.
Faces,
everybody is a family. Like, you literally know the 200 people that live in the village with you. Everybody knows what everybody does. Everybody knows where everybody hangs out. It's very, very closed-minded. And I think it was really good to be raised that way, in a closed little yeshuv where I could run around at any time of the day and night that I wanted. No cars would be endangering children. I used to run around skateboarding and playing ball with friends, and we'd, take our dogs and go for a walk and just do whatever we wanted, whenever we wanted. And we didn't have phones at the time. This is,
It was carefree.
98 until 2008, and we just had a good time. It was amazing. It was a good childhood. On the lesser side, the guys of the yeshuv had never met any olim.
Yeah.
It was the first time that they had this interaction, and although people did know some English, none of them wanted to speak English to my parents out of the fear of embarrassing themselves.
Oh, okay. I see.
Which is, I'm sorry, but that's kind of idiotic.
It is, because then you won't learn.
This family of English speakers who never spoke Hebrew at home, they didn't grow up in Jewish religious schools, they went to Christian schools, they had no Hebrew background, and then they make Aliyah and nobody's there to kind of give them a hand and help them.
Yeah.
So there were positives and negatives. I think as a child growing up and going to grade 1, etc., from the day that I arrived here, I had it much easier than my parents.
Yeah, because you also learned the language
completely,
as a young child.
Completely. No, I went to school and, kindergarten and everything. Although I'm a South African born Israeli.
It's obviously easier to assimilate when you're so young and you have a fresh start in a place, as opposed to your parents who are already adults and they kind of have to start over from nothing.
Completely. And the one thing, the reason why I identify myself as a South African born Israeli is because growing up in Chispin, being the first or the second family of olim, I was always considered a semi outsider. It wasn't that people just walked around like, oh, he's an outsider. I didn't know the culture. I didn't know I didn't know Judaism much. I was brought up religious, but we came from a background that didn't have all of this.
Yeah.
And by the time that we caught up, it was a bit too late to change the mindset of the people. So I had a good time, and people accepted us really nicely and brought us in and looked after us, and it was really good to grow up in the community. And it was amazing as a community, but we had a rough time, and I don't know about anybody else, but I always felt as if I'm always he's an American, because they
automatically think
they couldn't understand what a white South African is. Nobody knew what a white African is. Where's the South Africa,
Yeah.
And so that's pretty much what the beginning of my story in Israel. That's my Aliyah story.
That's really surprising. I don't know. It's really funny to think about the fact that you were raised religious, because it's so different from who you are today. So it's really interesting. I think also Israeli people will always accept Jewish people, because there is a big difference between being Israeli and being Jewish. So I think Israeli people will always accept Jewish people, because at the end of the day, Jewish people will stick together wherever they are, but you are going to face challenges, obstacles, etc. if you're not Israeli specifically.
Yeah, completely. Israelis don't have the sense of community that you have as a Jewish people outside of Israel in the
Really?
diaspora.
I actually don't agree with you, at least from my experience.
So when you were in the US, you had a Jewish community, right?
It's kind of not complicated, but it's different because...
It's completely different, and that's the point.
But I didn't feel a sense of community where I lived.
So you have the shul that everybody goes, and so for the people who don't know, a Jewish shul is a synagogue.
Synagogue, yeah. That's where we pray and celebrate like Yom Kippur, which is day of fast and all the holy days.
The holy days it's
are
our
celebrated
temple of.
It's like going to church. It's like going to mass.
Pretty much, yeah.
Or praying in a mosque, I guess, to be inclusive.
It's a community center that is religiously orientated.
For Jewish people.
Yeah. And overseas, especially in the South Africa, Australia, Europe, England, etc. Communities, Jewish people meet up at the shul and have like a communal lunch, and they'll have Kiddush, which is a celebration of the Saturday.
Before you welcome in Shabbat or Saturday, you, I guess, bless. I mean, if that's the word.
You bless the wine.
You bless the wine and the food that you
received, and you have a festival meal.
Yeah.
And that happens every Friday night and every Saturday morning and Saturday night when you...
Chamin on Shabbat.
Yeah. And you have the chunt.
Yeah.
Etc. So the Jewish communities overseas are very, very communal. So you have the doctor, you have the lawyer, you have etc. etc. And if somebody has a problem, the doctor will help the lawyer and the lawyer will help the doctor.
That's so stereotypical.
But it's true.
Jewish lawyer.
No, but it's...
No, it's so true though.
But it's really true because it's a community life.
Yeah.
So everybody can do whatever they want, but you meet up at the community center at the shul, and that's what people do. And you've got stronger communities and weaker communities, but that's how it's like. And when you make Aliyah and you arrive in Israel, pretty much everybody's Jewish. So there's no kind of Jewish community. So you can live in a city just as other people live in cities around the world.
I kind of experienced the opposite of what you're talking about.
No, but and we'll listen to your story right now, but you did Aliyah as a Garin Tzabar, right?
Yeah, and I'll get into that.
And you'll get into it in a moment.
But just like when I was growing up in New York, I didn't really feel...
The community.
Not exactly.
Okay.
And I'll explain. So I made Aliyah 5.5-ish years ago in 2014. I was 18 years old at the time. I knew from pretty much 6th or 7th grade, which is age 12, 13, that I wanted to live here because all of my extended family lives in Israel. So it was always just my parents, my brother, and I, which was fine, but it definitely was lacking, the fact that we didn't have extended family. And when I was finally at the age to leave the house, I told my parents, this is what I want to do. And it was kind of tough because my parents, they wanted me to do what would make me happy, but they realized that it would be really hard for me to not just leave the house, but leave the country.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I honestly don't know how they just went with it.
Did any of your close friends make Aliyah as well from home?
No, I went to a public school in America, which is a non-Jewish school. So we had Jewish kids, but most of them weren't. Most of my friends weren't Jewish. We were a group of first-generation Americans, and I even didn't really connect with American Jews that much because we weren't coming from the same place. It's totally different. Like I said before, it's totally different to be a Jewish person and an Israeli person.
Completely. You say that the majority of your friends were non-Jewish
but we
Americans,
were all first generation, so we kind of knew
all first generation. The first non-Jew that I met, consciously that I could differentiate between Jew and non-Jew was at a very older age. I was surrounded with religious Jews throughout my childhood.
That's crazy.
I only grew up in a Jewish environment. I didn't have that kind of thing as non-Jewish.
That's so wild to think about. I don't know. I just didn't find myself with hanging out with American Jews because they really are different. At the end of the day, I grew up in an Israeli household. My parents are Israeli, so I was raised differently. Chinuch. I don't know how to...
Education.
Yeah, I guess I was raised with different, a different lifestyle than American Jews. It is really different. People don't understand that, I think.
It's completely different.
Yeah. And, most of my friends were non-Jewish first-generation kids, and we kind of all just understood each other because we had that one thing in common, even though we were all really different. So I had a friend from India, a friend from Brazil. My best friend, who I still talk to, is from Burma. And we all just kind of connected on that level of like, okay, we're first generation kids. So when I made Aliyah through the program Gal and Moishe. It's through the Tzofim, which is a Jewish organization, kind of like Scouts in America.
It's Jewish Scouts.
It's Jewish Scouts, yeah, so it's pretty much the same thing. And we were 24 people, 12 guys and 12 girls, and we lived in Kibbutz Kinneret, which is in the north by the Sea of Galilee.
Do you want to explain a bit about the program?
It's basically a program for bringing people from all over the world to come to Israel and join the army. You don't have to make Aliyah, but you can.
Isn't it like Jewish orientated? It's not just people?
Yeah, it's Jewish orientated. Jews from all over the world. We have seminarim, which is like meetups. Yeah, wow, I can't even think in English anymore.
So we're going to have an episode about that as well.
Absolutely.
The Hebrew, the bilingual problem.
Yeah, being bilingual is really hard. So we have meetup seminars in different locations. I was on the East Coast of America, so we had kids from New York, New Jersey, etc. Meet up and just get to know each other and see if we can like click together as a group, because at the end of the day, we're going to have to live with each other.
Is it usually done like during the gap year? Or, like when does it happen?
No, I did this in high school. I was in my senior year, and we just became a group. We moved here. We lived in the kibbutz, and it's a program that basically also teaches us about Israel briefly, like history and about the army. And there are two soldiers in Chai Chinuch. Wow, help me out here. The
education corps. But wait, just before you carry on, do you want to throw a word about kibbutz? Do you want to explain a bit?
I'll get into that. After I explain what it is, I'm gonna break it down.
Okay.
So there's two soldiers in like an educational unit in the army who pretty much guide us like throughout the program, and they help us also decide more or less, or help like give us direction about what we want to do in the army, which is also pretty cool. A kibbutz is like a commune. Is that the word in English?
Pretty much a commune. It's a socialist.
It's a socialist village, I guess.
It's a socialist village based on the equal rights of everybody, pretty much.
Yeah.
It started back in the day in the 50s
Israel was just founded.
Israel, and pretty much everybody do everything together. Like the kibbutzim now still act as kibbutzim.
But there's like Muflat and all that,
Yeah, so. But the ones that are still like the classic kibbutzim are completely socialist. People go to like the dining room together. There's a dining room for the whole village where everybody comes and eats.
Yeah.
And your salary isn't given to you by what your salary really is. Like you can make.
Everyone just gets paid more or less. Like
so you get paid by your status in the village. So. For example, if you have 2 children and you need a bit more money,
you get more money than someone with 1 child.
Exactly. So you can be a doctor and your salary from your employer is 40 or 50,000 shekels, but you get from the kibbutz only 10 or 12,000 shekels because your money goes to the kibbutz.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, the kibbutz has cars that they give out to people just by appointment, to the guys from the kibbutz.
You get things from the kibbutz when you...
It's a very strong social structure.
Yeah. Basically, that was what Israel was founded on.
Pretty much.
We were a socialist country.
It was based on a socialist ideology.
So yeah, that's the program that I did.
So what kibbutz did you guys go to?
Kinneret.
You went to Kinneret, which is on the Sea of Galilee.
Really on the Sea of Galilee, near Tiberias, Tveria. And basically growing up in New York, I honestly didn't feel in the community because, again, the Jewish community is exactly that. It's Jewish. It's not really Israeli. My parents have Israeli friends that live there also, but we weren't really a part of all the celebrations of like holidays and stuff like that in the synagogue because it just wasn't people that we connected with. So my parents had their circle of Israeli friends, but other than that, I wasn't really in the community. So when I came to Israel and everyone around me was just like me, that's when I felt like I'm a part of something.
That's the first time you had a community interaction. Yeah,
that's the first time I felt like I belonged really where I was. like in the way of like where I live.
Did you decide you want to join the army before you made Aliyah?
Yeah, I knew that I wanted to do that because I, as opposed to my brother, for example, I didn't really know what I wanted to study after college. I personally felt like, okay, I'm 18 years old. I have not much life experience besides school. And honestly, school doesn't really prepare you for the real world as much as we want it to. And I felt like going to the army would be a really good experience for me because I'd be more independent. I would face challenges. I'd be out of my comfort zone. And I think I thought at the time that would really help me. And actually, it did. I'm really lucky that I can say that my service helped me figure out what I want to do with my life and who I want to be. And I learned a lot about myself. And I really enjoyed it. And I felt more in a community in the army than I did in the States, to be honest.
Fair enough. I mean, it makes sense. When you're in the army, you have your unit and you have your friends, and you really do feel a connection. Like, the army puts you with people that you'd never speak to while walking down the street.
Not at all.
Where you have to sleep with your leg on their head.
Yeah.
And
a gun under your head.
Exactly. And stuck in the middle of nowhere in a freezing cold night or a boiling hot day.
In a tent.
And you have to pretty much live with each other and deal with whatever rubbish
gets thrown your way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it puts you with people that are friends for life afterwards.
Absolutely.
But that's another episode that we can speak on. Okay, so you made Aliyah 5.5 years ago.
Yeah.
With the Gal and Moishe.
Yes. So we were a group. And I met a lot of people who made Aliyah alone. And I thought to myself, how do you do that? That's just beyond me. Because I really don't think I would have succeeded as much as I did without the program itself.
That's another reason why we're doing this podcast, to reach out to the guys who did make Aliyah and are having a rough time, and we share your thoughts with us. Tell us what you guys are feeling, and
share experiences also.
Completely.
And yeah, I think I had a great Aliyah experience. I know people who didn't, which kind of sucks. There's people who I know that went back to the States, and I don't really think I could see myself going back, which is crazy to think about, but I really don't see myself going back to live there.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. But it's still like it's always an open question though.
To go back.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a possibility that something will not really turn out the way that I want it to, or not really go as I planned. And like on a big scale. And
you have that reserve option of going to the US if need be.
Me personally, it's not an option for me. If I go back to live there, I'm like kind of gonna look at it as a failure, in a sense. But people always ask me, "Do you think you'll go back?" I always answer that I really don't know. I can't know for sure because it's always an open door.
Can we know anything for sure?
No, absolutely not. But my parents are still there. My brother is still there. And at the end of the day, if something really happens, I know I can just go back.
Yeah, it's nice to have that option, with you at all times. So, for example, I don't see myself as going back to South Africa. I've visited there once
since you came to Israel.
Since we made Aliyah.
Wow.
What was that? 98, 2020. It's 12 years ago.
That's crazy.
That's pretty insane. It's more than 12 years ago.
That's more than 12 years.
It's 22 years
22,
ago.
yeah.
Wow, my math sucks. 22 years ago. I don't see myself ever going back to South Africa to live, but I really, really want to go back there and do like a, heritage kind of tour to see where my parents grew up, and I've got a few memories from a very young age, and I just want to see the place, It's like, it's funny how people identify, like if someone asks me, I'm an Israeli, but people identify like, no, you're not an Israeli. We can see you're not an Israeli. Where you're from? So I'm like, I'm a South African Israeli. And then
you've lived here enough time, I think,
to be an Israeli. I'm completely an Israeli, but people don't always consider me Israeli
just because you have an accent or speak English.
So I don't have an accent when I speak Hebrew.
Yeah, you don't actually.
I sound Israeli. Like, the only thing that gives me away is the way I behave. which is a bit different than the majority of the
Because we were
Israelis.
raised different.
Completely. And I grew up here, but I had that influence from my parents who were South Africans. Stuff like table manners and a lot of different things that are very not Israeli.
People always told me that I'm too polite because in America, like, people really are polite. But I think also in the time that I lived here, in the short time compared to you, I definitely became more chutzpanit.
Completely, but it's something that you have to do when you live in Israel.
That's how you adapt here.
You have to. It's pretty much adapt or die.
Yeah. If you don't do something for yourself or like speak up for yourself, good luck.
And
honestly,
that's one of the reasons why a lot of people do go back to the countries that they came from originally.
Yeah.
A lot
it's
of people.
Not for everyone.
It's not. It's a rough time. And as you said, you made the Aliyah with Gal and Moishe. It's a community that supports you. You probably had moments that were like, this is just not what I wanted, and
there were definitely moments that I considered going back, but that was mostly because I really missed my mom and my family.
Which is another rough thing that you have to do when you,
super hard.
When you immigrate to a different country, there's a lot of things that go into it. It's not just the language and the weather and the people, and there's, the emotions of it, and
there's stuff that you carry on your own that no one can really understand. Like, I remember when I was in basic training and we were in a base that was not like too far away and isolated. I was in Tzrifin, which is near Rishon LeZion. It's like a very center, like a city in the center.
It's just near Tel Aviv.
It's near Tel Aviv.
It's pretty much Tel Aviv.
Yeah, and I remember girls crying like on the first night, and I thought to myself, you guys woke up in your own house and your mom cooked you breakfast and drove you to like say goodbye, and I just didn't have that experience. Like, I woke up at like 5 a.m, did everything myself, got myself organized, and did everything alone. So that kind of put me into perspective of like how, not to say like no one understands me, but no one really did understand what I was really going through. And even now I face moments after I've lived here for a long time where I miss my mom, and
completely.
It might sound like a little kid saying that, but
no,
you never stop missing your mom.
Completely true. You never stop missing your parents, and
of course,
I myself was a Chayal Boded as well, as a lone soldier, for other reasons. My dad works overseas, and at the time, my mom went overseas to live with my father, with 2 of my younger sisters, and people don't understand that when you leave the base on a Friday after 2 weeks of being in, you need to go do your washing.
Yeah.
You need to go do the shopping to make the food for yourself. And it's not that you just arrive home, go to sleep, and everything's made for you and created.
The work never ends. The chores never end. The
it's
list of things to do.
You arrive home after 2 weeks that nobody touched your apartment, and you need to make sure that everything's fine.
You need to clean, cook, do your laundry, and mommy isn't there to do it for you.
Exactly. And it's a very, very it's a rough and grueling kind of situation, but it does make you come out better on the other side. It
builds you.
It completely builds you.
Absolutely.
So you made Aliyah straight into the army pretty much.
Yeah, after I made Aliyah, and after like 3 to 4 months, I was already in basic training. And I really looked forward to it and anticipated it. So I wasn't nervous. I wasn't scared. I was really excited. Like, tzahov, as people say, which means basically just being, I guess, super nerdy about the army, like being overly into it.
It's being very systematic.
I guess, yeah.
It's being very on the systems side of things.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Like, if they ask you to march. Don't ask questions.
Yeah, exactly. You're just going to do what you're told. And
pretty much.
Yeah. So I was actually really excited about it. So I had fun, but a lot of people are really nervous. And I can understand why. I'm just different in how I react to things.
No, but I found we'll have a whole army talk, but I found that a lot of the Chayalim Bodedim, the lone soldiers, especially the guys that came from overseas, have a certain responsibility to show that they can deal with the situation.
Like, we have to prove ourselves more.
I don't know if it's prove yourself more to the military. It's
No,
more
to
like prove
us.
yourself to, or prove ourselves to ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's why the majority of the like serious, the first commanders to go out
Like
and
high-ranking soldiers.
the pakalim, which is
Like
what
special jobs you get.
special appointed jobs you get are usually by lone soldiers in the beginning.
Because we're better.
And you know, and I found that a lot of lone soldiers do go out to the commanding courses and to the officers course, and they really believe that what they're doing is the right thing.
And I agree with that. But also, as much as the army can sometimes suck, there's a lot of benefits into staying in the army.
I think it's a very grueling but beneficial process to be in the army, especially if you stay on a year or two as an officer.
Yeah.
It gives you the benefit of implementing yourself in the society a bit better, because once you're in the paying, like the
Once you're in the real world.
Military service, and you finish the compulsory service, you live in your own apartment.
Oh, you mean in the army? I thought you meant once you got out of the army.
No, but I mean, as Keva,
yeah,
is that step exactly where you go and you reach out to the real world, because you have your own apartment, you're paying tax, etc., etc., etc. And once you get released, that's a very, very good step to do.
People always look at you in a better angle than people who weren't
completely.
officers.
And you dealt with the bureaucracy of, you know, paying tax and living and doing whatever you need to do and reaching the places and dealing with, you know, IRA and IRS, sorry.
Yeah, IRS.
IRA, the Red Army.
Bachot.
So yeah, so that's really, really cool, and it's, you know, it's nice to figure these things out and
Yeah.
to see.
You
to
learn
share
a
story.
lot.
You learn a real lot.
And you learn fast, also.
You do.
I look at it now, and today I'm used to dealing with stuff like bills and my salary and shopping and figuring out what I need. But now that we're actually talking about it, and I look back, I learned a lot of things really fast, really quickly.
Because you really, if you don't learn it fast enough, you just won't make it, and that's the guys who go back to, you know, wherever they came from.
Yeah, and I'm actually pretty proud of myself.
You should be.
For learning that, and you should be too.
Yeah,
But
I made Aliyah when I was 5 years old.
yeah, but still, you did that.
I
just
had a
later
mom to
time.
do it for me.
Yeah, you had your mom around longer than me.
Completely.
But at the end of the day, you have your own place.
I do.
You work.
Yeah,
We're
I left
studying.
home when I was 18. I've been living in my own apartment since I was 18.
So it's pretty
much the
similar.
same,
Yeah.
Just I didn't have to deal with moving a country, which is a big
Yeah.
gist.
I just don't look at it that way because I've been to Israel since I was really a baby, and it's just not a foreign place. So I don't look at it in that magnitude. Like it's true. Yeah, I moved from one country to another. I left everything I had in New York, and I came to a place where I started from kind of nothing, but I did have family here. I knew the language. I was used to the culture. I was able to assimilate and adapt faster than a standard ole or immigrant who doesn't have all those things. So that's why I don't really look at it as like this big thing that I did.
You know, you say that, but I think, like, out of the olim that I know, everybody has some connection. So my parents didn't speak a word of Hebrew, or not much, but, you know, we made Aliyah, and they didn't have that full connection, but they had us, and I had my parents, and I made Aliyah, so they were in a quote-unquote worse situation than you, but they had each other, you know?
Yeah.
So they dealt with it that way, and you didn't have anything, quote-unquote, but you did have the language and a bit of family and stuff like that, but you completely left everything behind. And, you know,
And that's what was familiar to me.
and each ole has their little rope kind of thing that has something to hold on to. And the people who do go back are the ones that those, you know, ropes just don't hold strong enough.
They break at a certain point. And that's okay. It's definitely, like we said before, Israel is not a country for everyone. It's not.
Although Israel does accept everybody, which is
Israel accepts everyone, but
amazing.
it's not exactly the place that would fit for everyone to live in.
It's not the easiest place to
exactly.
live. You've got daily challenges of life that I don't think that some random suburb in, mid US would have.
Or South Africa, maybe.
Or South Africa. I mean, it's different challenges.
Of course. But
Israel
is very different.
It's very tense.
Yeah, that's
so word. Like there's always like the Hebrew word for pressure is lachatz.
Yeah, lachatz and all the time.
Always lachatz.
I actually talked about that with my boyfriend like last week. That when I lived in America and we had the weekend Saturday, Sunday, as opposed to Israel, which is Friday, Saturday. When I was enjoying the weekend, I was enjoying the weekend. In Israel, at least from my experience, Yom Shishi, Friday, is super stressful because you have to get
super
everything
stressful
ready
and
before
everything
Shabbat.
Closes early.
Yeah, that's
because Shabbat, Saturday
here.
starts in the afternoon as sundown, and all the shops are closed an hour or two before.
And in the winter, it's even earlier because
and even
daylight
earlier,
savings.
Completely.
And Friday is super stressful because you have to get everything ready. You have to prepare arochat shishi, which is Friday night dinner. You have to make sure everything is perfect by Friday evening. You can enjoy your Friday evening and Saturday, but then once Shabbat is over, everything automatically just goes back to its fast pace, even though it's Saturday still.
Yeah, completely. You have to start dealing with the week. The week, like a Monday, the American Monday
is Sunday.
It's not just Sunday, it's Saturday night.
Yeah.
Like you go to sleep at night, okay, I need to wake up in the morning and do this, do that, do the other. I've got this project, I've got that project, I've got I've got studying. There's always lachatz here.
Always. And it's funny because New York is also a very fast-paced
24/7,
place.
yeah.
But I still didn't feel it at the same magnitude as I do here, which is crazy to think about. I thought New York was like the most fast-paced, no one has time for you, no one has patience type of place. But in Israel, it's a lot worse.
And you'd blame the supposed security situation, that people are always in kind of fear of their life, but it's not true. You don't feel that. Like
no.
We
don't because we're not living in the South.
But I mean, even guys who live in the South and guys who live in Jerusalem when there were all the knife attacks and when I used to live in Judah and Samaria, when I used to live in Efrat,
which is a settlement.
Over the Green Line. It's a mainly American settlement.
It's super Zionist, like all settlements.
Yeah, there are a lot of Americans there. It's very close to Jerusalem, so a lot of people live there because it's just cheaper than living in Jerusalem. It's like 5 or 10 minute drive. Anyway, so even there, while you're in the settlement, you don't feel that pressure. You don't feel like, your life is threatened. But still, you are constantly under lachatz.
Yeah.
All the time.
That's just a part of being Israeli.
It's part of being in Israel. It's just a very, very... it's just part of the way of life here.
Also in Tel Aviv, it's like that. I mean, or in the surrounding area. No one has the patience for someone who doesn't know what they want or is indecisive. Like, you cannot be indecisive here. You can't take more than 2 minutes to think about something that you need to do. If you have a decision, you got to make it quick and know what you want to do. Or even dealing with bureaucracy is really
completely and
annoying.
And it's even more than that. It goes up to the stage where you get to a situation where you need to know what you want from
the beginning.
Because you can go and try and deal with stuff, and people will just be very short with you.
Yeah.
People will argue with you about stuff, and people will, if you want to get off at a bus station and the bus stops, like he'll close the doors faster than you can get.
I've seen so many bus drivers close doors on like elderly people.
So it's not because they they're not doing it because they mean, but everyone here is just hurrying up to someone.
I don't agree with that. I've seen so many bus doors close on even elderly people or people like women with children, and that angers me because it's like, just wait 1 more minute and let them go on the bus.
I agree with you completely, but it's
just like
part of the culture. It's part of everything here is fast paced, and you need to have the answers for whatever you're going for straight in place, and
you need to like leave your house knowing exactly what you're doing all the time.
Pretty much.
Which is difficult at times.
But I mean, it sounds like we emphasize this and we make this sound like it's the end of the world. It's just part of the culture, so it's not.
You don't notice it on a day-to-day basis.
No,
because that's just how we live.
You don't notice it. It's, you wake up in the morning and everything's fine, but you have to know what you want for yourself.
It just happens automatically once you live here long enough and you figure out how things work, because you realize if you don't adapt to the system's going to beat you every time.
Yeah, so the bureaucracy in Israel is pretty rough.
That's like why I check everything twice before I go to the post office or go to any bureaucratic offices, or if I need to make a doctor's appointment and I need to tell them something, whatever it may be, I always know exactly what I want to say or what I need to do or what I need to buy. And it sounds like a burden probably, but when you're used to it, you act that way automatically.
So it makes everything faster, and just everything works out.
It's efficient, but it can also be kind of stressful.
Okay, so that was our first episode. That was really exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I am excited. We're going to give you more, obviously. And if you have any ideas, please approach us at...
Any topics you want to hear about.
Yeah, anything.
We're more than happy to talk about them.
Anything. Where can they find us?
At hafhpodcast@gmail.com.
We are going to be uploading to Spotify, to Apple Podcasts, to our YouTube page. Again, if you have any comments, bad, good, anything you want, you're more than welcome to contact us.
We accept everything.
We do. You can also send us ideas and requests to our Gmail.
Requests are more than welcome. Obviously, we want to talk about things that you want to listen to.
Probably.
So, that's welcome.
We're going to be talking about food.
Yes. Food.
Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you enjoyed.